Everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and a modern playoff event on Magic the Gathering Online has wrapped up. Over 400 people played in this event, and that is a pretty damn serious tournament. Let me tell you, if an event has like more than 8 rounds, that's a pretty good indicator of what's strong and what's not. Like, it basically takes most of the luck away. So the results, we can actually, we can get a lot from and learn a lot from the results of very large events like that. So the event had over 400 people, and the top decks really tell the story of what is working in Modern right now. All right, so before we get into the top 8, I'd like to give some honorable mentions to our Merfolk Fish fam who came in at 10th place. All right, Merfolk. But not only that, most importantly, and this is going to help tell the story for the rest of this top 8, 9th place was Amulet. Amulet Titan is a deck that is coming on the rise. We're seeing it all over the place in the SCG events, and we're going to start seeing it online. And as a result of its recent success, thanks to Once Upon a Time helping them find the right lands that they need, and also the creatures. All the creatures are very important. Between Primeval Titan, Azusa, those are the cards that really help the deck go off. And Once Upon a Time helps with the deck's consistency in that way. Not to mention, like, the deck has a lot of mana, so that even if Once Upon a Time isn't the first spell you play for a turn, it's still going to be valuable much later on in the game. So now, in 9th place was Amulet Titan, so a big mana deck. And coming in at 8th place is Eldrazi Tron. Now, the death of Eldrazi Tron is quite a bit exaggerated. Eldrazi Tron is still putting up results. Eldrazi Tron was incredibly well positioned during the Hogak meta, as we learned from Laplacian Eldrazi Tron Master. The deck has incredible late game power with Karn the Great Creator into Mycosynth Lattice, but has the early game interaction to deal with burn, to deal with those stupid creature decks. Got Spatial Contortion and Dismember, and most importantly, Chalice of the Void. But how on earth were those cards supposed to do so well, specifically Chalice of the Void, in a metagame that was slowing down and becoming more grindy, more card advantage based? But it looks like the deck still has a lot of power to it. Big mana is the thing to do right now. We see it with Amulet, we're seeing it with Eldrazi Tron. So even though it has that early game stuff, it still has ways of going way over the top of people. Still with All Is Dust and the Eldrazi, tons of mana. Karn the Great Creator into Ensnaring Bridge, into Mycosynth Lattice will take out tons of decks. So Eldrazi Tron is still a force to be reckoned with, even though it didn't really gain much from Throne of Eldraine or the banning or unbanning. The banning of like Hogak and Faithless Looting, and the unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic. Coming in at number 7 is again Eldrazi Tron. So we've got 2 copies of Eldrazi Tron in this top 8, and if you want to see the full results, you can check them in the description below. I've got a link to all the lists of the top 8. Eldrazi Tron putting up another number. So just because the format has slowed down does not take away enough of the value of the Eldrazi Tron deck. And I'm sure if you want to be a more proactive player, playing with Thought-Knot-Seer, Matter Reshaper, Reality Smasher, Eldrazi Tron will probably be the deck for you over, say, regular Tron. So coming in, number 6 is Blue-White Control. Now, this particular Blue-White Control deck, relatively stock, still playing Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. That card is still a beating. If that card resolves and sticks on the board for like more than one turn, it's going to bury a deck in card advantage and mana advantage. It's basically a 3-mana Planeswalker. All these Teferis are 3-mana Planeswalker. Why do they keep making the 3-mana Teferis? What the hell is going on with this? So, I mean, you play for 5 mana, but you get to untap 2 lands. So, I mean, it's not really a 5-mana spell. So it's got a lot of the stock stuff, also Teferi, Time Reveler, Narset, whatever. One new addition, Mystic Sanctuary, the card that people were afraid was going to be super busted because you can fetch for this thing. It's an island. This is like the first, like, I don't know, non-basic island with some ability attached to it. And then you can put an instant from your graveyard back on top of your library. Now, I see the synergy here, obviously, but I didn't understand why people would think this is incredibly broken, because it's not like something you can chain together turn after turn after turn. It's just an effect once every second turn. So, for example, let's say you wanted to put a Cryptic Command back on top of your library. Okay, that's fine. And then you play Cryptic Command, you draw the Cryptic Command, counter something, bring Mystic Sanctuary back to your hand, but the next turn you're still drawing a random card. So you only get to put a very important you only get to put a card from your graveyard on top of your library in like once every 2 turns. Yeah, that's great, but there's a lot of other big things Blue-White Control can do, like, you know, what Teferi. I think Teferi is way more dangerous than this Mystic Sanctuary, in my opinion. I don't really see what's the big problem there. So Mystic Sanctuary, I think, is a very safe new addition to the control decks, and obviously is making control still relevant over, say, something like Stoneblade. So now coming in at number 5 is Urza. Now, recently, and I don't honestly know why, maybe the viewers can tell me why. Why is Urza Paradox, you know, all over the place? Why is everyone so excited about Urza Paradox? Is it just an easier deck to play? Is it more flashy? Is it more explosive? Because in my eyes, it's more vulnerable. It's more vulnerable to counter spells, whereas you look at something like Urza, the Urza deck, with Sword of the Meek and Thopter Foundry, it looks like a much more resilient deck to me. I mean, it has a lot more interaction in the form of removal. It's not like just gold fishing by itself like the Paradox deck looks like. Not to mention, so it's got the interaction, but it's got the resilience. So let's say you counter a particular spell. Let's say you counter Thopter Foundry. I mean, the Goblin Engineer can take it from the graveyard back to the battlefield. So it's a lot. I think it's a harder deck to beat. And you see, the Urza Paradox did not make the top 8. The Urza deck made the top 8, and I think they've got all the tools, but I think they have just as many winning chances. So I'm not entirely sure why it is that the Paradox deck is getting all the attention and everyone's forgot about Urza. Urza's the one that's made the top 8, and we got to keep paying attention to the Urza deck. Now, coming in at number 4, very interesting deck list here, Crixus Death Shadow, but not your normal Crixus Death Shadow. This is a super heavy blue-black version. Really heavy in blue-black, just a really light red splash. They cut Lightning Bolt. This just in, Crixus Death Shadow says, screw Lightning Bolt, we're not playing with it anymore, we don't need it. I mean, and you look at this top 8, why would you want Lightning Bolt? Eldrazi Tron, they're just going to counter it with Chalice on 1, and even if it doesn't get countered, we're going to kill a Reality Smasher, Thought-Knot, you're going to kill the Matter Reshaper that's just going to get a card. The value of Lightning Bolt in that matchup sucks. You look at Blue-White Control, again, another matchup where these Lightning Bolts are sort of garbage. You look at Urza, where you're gonna kill Urza with the Lightning Bolt. I mean, you have a few more targets with Goblin Engineer, but still, they're gonna put something in the. If they put something like Sword of the Meek in the graveyard, your Lightning Bolt didn't get a lot of value, really. You look, yeah, and so you're going, and if we're gonna look at the rest of this top 8, it looks like Lightning Bolt is not well positioned. Lightning Bolt is not doing so well. So this is a really heavy blue-black Death Shadow deck that is splashing red, still for some red cards, things like a Braid in the sideboard, but a really spicy one, the Royal Scions. The Royal Scions to really make one particular creature on the board extra powerful and impactful. You know, soup up that Gurmag Angler and get in there, making basically any particular creature on the battlefield extra lethal than it normally would be. So I guess that is their Teamer Battle Rage sort of effect in the deck. But very interesting, no Lightning Bolt, great meta call. I think it really paid off for them. They're a lot less vulnerable to Chalice of the Void on 1. and they still got all the answers. You know, they're still like a Crixus deck, you know, playing a Braid. So anyway, excellent Crixus Shadow list. So coming in at number 3 is Stoneblade. So the unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic still has a real effect on the modern metagame. Stoneblade, the Stoneforge Mystic deck, it's evolved a little bit with Throne of Eldraine with 2 Fae of Wishes. This is the card that has the adventure spell to find a non-creature spell from outside the game and put it into your hand. Not to mention you can like activate, the thing is a pretty good blocker. It's a 1/4 for 2 mana, and you can, I believe you can return it back to your hand for 2 cards, 2 mana, discard 2 cards, tap it, return it back to your hand. So you can keep chaining this in a way for, you know, quite a price for cards from your sideboard. Incredible addition to the Stoneblade deck. Putting up results, Stoneforge Mystic is definitely leaving their mark on Modern. Not busted, but very, very good. Has found a great place in the Modern metagame where it's nice and slow and safe for Stoneforge Mystic. Now, coming in at number 2 of this event, Titan Shift. Now, this might be worth a video all in itself. I think Titan Shift is the most underrated Tier 1 deck in Modern. When you name the Tier 1 decks of Modern, I think the one deck no one brings up is Titan Shift. But Titan Shift is the archetype that is consistently in top 8s. Over and over and over again, at least 50%. I think it's performing better than like most Modern decks. I don't know, it's just quietly putting up results. You look at Titan Shift and you think, well, maybe 1,000,000 decks should be able to beat Titan Shift. What is so important about Titan Shift? You know, you can aggro it out, you can combo them, you can be faster. You know, they're just sort of a clunky combo deck. But in reality, I don't know, there's a lot of decks that just cannot deal with it. Maybe because there's a lot of fair decks coming out, like the Jund decks, the Crixus Shadow decks, even the maybe pending Tron's opening. They can't interact with the lands. They can't interact with land drops. And then that's basically what Titan Shift is. It's just land drop, land drop, land drop, land drop, land drop, combo. I mean, it sounds like a familiar story with the Tron decks, am I right? So the lands, not being able to interact with them, just leads to a lot of victories for these Titan Shift players. Just a lot of decks just can't deal with that. A lot of decks, it's just an inevitable doom on their way. I mean, can you win earlier than turn 4? And even if you can, they've got the tools. They've got Lightning Bolt. They've got Sweltering Suns. They've got the early interaction that can deal with your stuff and then combo off. I mean, and Sweltering Suns is not like a dead card because they can cycle it away. So that's very good for that archetype. So Titan Shift coming in at 2nd place. This is a very powerful deck, not to mention they can protect their combo even against counterspells with things like Veil of Summer, which they have gained from earlier sets. It's a new card that they can utilize very well. It's the counterspell to the counterspells. That's what Veil of Summer is, being used very well in Titan Shift. So coming in at number 1. Number 1, people. Number 1. Are you ready for it? Are you ready? I know I'm ready. Tron. Tron takes up the number 1 slot. And this Tron deck, oh, it's got a spicy addition to it. 3 of Once Upon a Time. They said it couldn't be done. They said it couldn't be done. Who said it could be done? Well, anyway, so this Tron deck winning 1st place in a over 400 player tournament is a basically stock Tron deck with Once Upon a Time. And you would wonder, I mean, of course they're looking for the Tron lands, but what creatures can they get? Well, they have a lot of creatures they can get. They can get Walking Ballista, they can get Ulamog, they can get Wormcoil Engine. And when they side in Thragtusk, they can look for that. There are a decent number of creatures they can look for. It does help the deck. So, but I believe that Once Upon a Time, they didn't find room for all 4, but they did find room for 3, is a good has a good place in Tron, and I think a lot of people tried it, and maybe they didn't build they didn't make the right build, and they just sort of assumed that it was going to be trash. And then I think the Tron players, when I proposed Once Upon a Time, they were like, they just didn't want to believe. They didn't want to believe. They probably didn't try very hard. They might not have even tested it in the first place. But anyway, this Tron deck with Once Upon a Time wins first place. Now, I won't say that it definitely needs to be in Tron. We need to see the results replicated. It's great to see that that Once Upon a Time did find a home in Tron in a first place finish of a big event, but it's only one finish. We do need to wait over time to see if this is a fluke or not. But anyway, I always thought that Once Upon a Time was built for Tron, and as we see, Tron does take first place with a build playing 3 copies of Once Upon a Time, making the deck more consistent for Tron and finding the creatures necessary to beat other opposing decks. So what is the story being told here in this top 8? It's super powerful. It's big mana. Between, like, if we look at the top 9, we've got Amulet, Eldrazi Tron. We've got Titan Shift and Tron. So there's 5 big mana decks. I don't know, is it time for Wasteland in Modern? They printed Field of Ruin, gave a lot of game to all sorts of decks, Blue-White Control, Jund, Abzan. But I don't know, maybe it's just not enough. The big mana decks are still taking over. Not enough people can interact with lands. It's just not something that people can do. Maybe it's now time for Ponza. Maybe it's time for Ponza to pounce on this modern metagame, because it's all big mana decks and you just screw their land and you just screw them. They're done for. So it's a big mana metagame. Do you have what it takes? And normally in big mana metagames with Titan Shift and Tron and Amulet, one of the keys of success is to be extra fast and aggro, but then you got Eldrazi Tron keeping them in check. So you got another big mana deck keeping all the smaller decks in check from really breaking out. So it's big mana. It's go big or go home. It's go big or go home, and it fits really well with how the metagame has slowed down. You got rid of Faithless Looting, you got rid of the super busted decks, and now that the metagame's slowed down, those big mana decks have a lot less to fear. And the decks that now have to fear the big mana decks are things like Jund and the Shadow decks to some degree. Although, like this Crixus Shadow deck, they said, screw the Lightning Bolt. And that's probably what you have to do. If the metagame's gonna be super slow and super mid-rangey and big mana, you gotta cut out the cards that would not be good in that situation. Lightning Bolt is not gonna do it in a metagame like this. I mean, if you're a Jund player and you're going to be up against Tron and Amulet and all this other stuff, well, maybe Bolt has a little bit more play against Amulet because of the Secure Tribe Scout, and I guess you can hit Azusa, but they have ways of getting value out of the Azusa anyway. But so the point is, like, Bolt worth a lot less against Eldrazi Tron, worth a lot less against regular Tron. You gotta make your adjustments. Make your adjustments, people. The Shadow deck made the adjustments. Are you making the adjustments? So those Jund's got to adjust. All the mid-range decks have to adjust. The Stoneblade decks have to adjust. You have to adjust appropriately for these the big mana strategies, or they're going to be coming out in full force. And I think this is a taste of things to come. I really do. I really do believe it. Personally, from a Merfolk perspective, I'm very happy to see this. Probably gives some good credit. It probably validates the 10th place finish for the Merfolk deck. So shout out to the Merfolk community. I like what I'm seeing here. I want to see a metagame where Merfolk is going to come in and take out the big guys. So anyway, I don't know are you afraid or are you happy with these results? Are you looking forward to playing these decks? Are you going to make the adjustments? Did you get any insight to the results that we saw here in these top 8 lists? Let me know in the comments section below. This has been Nikachu, Merfolk Master, going over the latest results for Modern in this Throne of Eldraine metagame.